You executive produced a show called The Office that aired first in 2005. Did you have any idea how big of a cultural impact it would have when you first started?
I don't know if I thought it would be this successful.
You're listening to Studio 22. Welcome to Studio 22. I'm Brock O'Hearn. I'm here with my co-host, Will Meldman, and we are with Ben Silverman, Propagate Chairman, co-CEO, and former Chairman of NBC Universal, New York Times bestseller, and Ben is a multi-Emmy and Golden Globe award-winning media mogul. And Ben, we are grateful to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for including me, boys.
Yeah, man. Thanks for your time. To dive in, kind of what I was thinking we could do is just start at the beginning, what was your first interest in the entertainment industry?
Well, I grew up in showbiz. My dad is an avant-garde chamber music composer and loved movies growing up. Amazing man, Stanley Silverman. And my mom was an opera singer turned theater producer and eventually a television executive in kind of the birth of cable TV, mainly driven by the fact that my dad's avant-garde composing couldn't pay for dinner, let alone college. And so she had to kind of sell out to television, but they were both kind of darlings of the intellectual set of late 60s, early 70s, New York City, and both loved movies, musicals, ballet, opera, and I just grew up in the arts. My stepmom, who my father married after my mom and he got divorced, is a brilliant violinist. My little sister wrote for the New York Times and can play the lute. My older sister is a painter, so it just was surrounded by creativity, but also I really had an ambition to figure out a way to do it on a high commercial level that could reach as wide an audience as possible and then maybe become more lucrative. And I also grew up, my parents got divorced when I was 4 as a latchkey kid in New York City. And I literally was raised by television. I mean, that watched every single show, every morality test, every part of my upbringing was informed by MASH and I Love Lucy and a multitude of TV hits.
I mean, I totally get that. I grew up in a big family of 5, and the TV was our parents, So it's a great thing to have. Yeah, that's awesome.
More specifically to that point, a little bit more down the road, what were your first jobs in entertainment?
During college, I did a number of interns that my mom helped me get when she was working in cable TV. She introduced me a number of people, including Eric Frankel, who was at Warner Brothers. And I worked in a series of Warner Brothers internships across different divisions, from the sales division to the animation division. And eventually, when I went to Paris to study abroad, even worked in the Paris office of Warner Brothers to try and learn kind of international, production. And then from there, graduated and became an assistant at CBS, and then got hired by a woman named Barbara Corday, who was a brilliant visionary co-creator of Cagney and Lacey. And within one day, she had promoted me 3 different times and told me it would be in Variety the next day. We were an office of 3 people, so it was easy to promote me. But she opened, with, I really think we should say that you've joined the company when I came in the morning, and we'll call you the development coordinator. And then by lunchtime, she came back from lunch and said, you know what, I was really thinking about it, and you should be the manager of development. And then before we left the office, she goes, the press will be out tomorrow, buddy. You're the director of development. And I was like, this is a good start.
Oh man,
best day ever.
And that sequences of hard work and good luck, and being in the lucky moment or right dynamic in the right moment really helped accelerate my career early.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sure you left work smiling that day.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome.
Every day for Barbara was awesome.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a super fast, really awesome way to get in. Were there any things you'd say, any obstacles you faced early on, or was it just like, hey, I went from this to 3?
Totally, seesawed my way across, many, many challenges in many moments as a aspiring, creative person and producer and executive, and, living in the studio apartment, typing on a typewriter outside of an office in a line of kind of cubicles at CBS, where I was the secretary to start, and having an actual roach infested studio apartment on Sierra Bonita, where like I had a system of walking across the floor to the bathroom, so I never touched the floor, on books and other things that were raised up to avoid the roaches. So, had all of that, and then throughout my career have either found challenges or been, annoyed or, beaten to the punch in something I wanted to do, or, mischaracterized by, kind of inane digital press or whatever it is. I found sequences of challenge and hurdle all along the way. And then it's just a highly competitive business. It just happens to be intrinsically competitive, and one in which so many of the players believe in a zero-sum game. Like, they can't revel in their own success. They have to find someone's downfall to feel their success. There's so many great lines about it, but like, no one catches a falling knife in Hollywood.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that, me and Will have had conversations
and
about that.
Shouldn't catch a falling knife in general for all the children listening. Not a good idea. Let the knife fall.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Move your feet.
You sound like a parent. It's what.
Total.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. No, yeah, definitely. I think me and Will have those conversations every now and again about, there's a lot of people that come and they want to, like you said, make you go down and step on top of you to get to where they want to go, versus like the crabs in a bucket, where if we all just help each other, we can all get there. There's plenty for everyone, right? Everyone to eat. So
I love the crabs in the bucket.
Yeah. I say that all the time. I love it.
So how did those early experiences eventually lead you into producing?
Well, I always wanted to be a producer, whatever that meant. And I had a pretty good idea of it because I lived through it with my family's relationship to many great theater producers, from Joe Papp, who's like one of the great icons and started the New York Public Theater, to Lynn Austin, who was a collaborator of my mother's, who was this amazing woman who drove a Mercedes. And I was just blown away that someone could drive a Mercedes in the world of the artist. That was not the car you drove. We had a 12-year-old VW that I slept in the back of on long trips. And I think that, that was kind of clear to me even as a kid. That's where I wanted to be, in the world of Samuel Goldwyn and like the kind of famous, the Warner Brothers, like the kind of icons of the birth of cinema were all in the studios, were all people that I kind of fantasized, about becoming one day. And watching the musicals that I used to watch, the kind of behind the scenes musicals, the Fred Astaire musicals, the Gene Kelly musicals, where they were always kind of a show within a show. That was how they got to be the musical. And that also made me really aspire to the kind of glamour and positivity and kind of fantasy of great movie making and television.
Yeah, I love those, like, I like to call them defining moments in your life, where you kind of attach yourself to a memory or a moment or whatever it is, and it kind of like something like that, the show within the show, and you being able to see that and enjoy that and then take it on. So I totally get that, man. I love it. Yeah,
for me, it's been kind of like the escapism part of it, where like if you're watching a film for 2 hours, you are just in that world. And I, like you said too, like the fantasy element. I love that.
Yeah. Speaking early on too, me and Will are big fans of Nirvana, and knowing you produced in 1998 with Kurt and Courtney, with Kurt Cobain, obviously, and Courtney Love. What was it that drew you to that?
Well, that story's incredible. And I met Courtney and I spent time with Courtney, and she's a amazingly intelligent, articulate, fireball of energy and disparate thoughts that kind of coalesce in brilliance, and just thought that, that story should and needs to be told, and it will be told again. I think it's perpetually told, because that birth of grunge and that, representation Kurt had on behalf of so many disenfranchised people, and lived through music and art and not violence except to himself, was really a seminal moment, and I think there's so many stories based on him, his music, his art that have yet to be told.
Yeah, what an impact, right?
Yeah, I never got to spend time with him, but spent a ton of time with her.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's definitely those ones that can transition time, or be timeless. The Bob Marleys, the Kurt Cobains. It's like those are the ones where you're like you did something. You moved a generation. Really, it's incredible.
Permanence.
Yeah,
and we're seeing with McCartney right now. I'm loving McCartney's Rubin interviews and the Disney Peter Jackson Beatles doc.
Yeah,
we're both just awesome. I love that he's finally telling the story.
And I love how, too, like film gives us that opportunity to go back and relive some of that and highlight specific moments. And yeah, that Beatles thing was pretty impressive.
He's always young in that.
Yeah. I think you said it before we started recording, but, you've worked on, let's just say, Will's favorite all-time show.
You executive produced a show called The Office that aired first in 2005. What led you to start that journey? And did you have any idea how big of a cultural impact it would have when you first started?
I don't know if I thought it would be this successful today, but at the time, I thought it should be as successful as it is today. And I really believed in it uniquely. I thought it was funnier in the underlying material, which I found in the UK and which Ricky Gervais and Stephen Shedd created. It was more poignant than the shows of that moment, which were a really canned laughter, kind of puerile Chuck Lorre sexuality and like, just mediocre to me. They weren't making me laugh. And then boom, this show comes on TV on BBC Two, and I'm watching them and I'm confused by it. And then I'm leaning into it, and then I'm uncovering things, and then I'm really, really laughing. And when we, I found it and then brought it to Greg Daniels to collaborate on with it and adapt it and create his own version. And then, coming up with the idea of Scranton, the way that Slough in the UK version, Scranton kind of looks on, it's not really near any city, but it's close to all cities. And it's not quite a city, but it is a city. One of these kind of places like Slough, which I had been to in London, having lived in London. So I really understood a lot of the cultural specificity and translation around it. And then to kind of amass that murderer's row of talent from, Carell to Krasinski to Craig Robinson to every single player, from deep on the bench to all the way in the front row. Like it's an amazing ensemble. And I really feel lucky that it got rediscovered in the kind of post syndication age, because it didn't do that well in syndication. It almost required this new genre, of comedy that Netflix kind of pushed, which was more informed by The Office than the comedies that had predated it. And I also think that the kind of old haired set of independent, kind of affiliates and broadcast affiliates were just like confused about the show. Like it just didn't kind of connect to them as much. So they didn't really invest in it. It really took cable and streaming to have it hit this younger demo and become so permanently famous. You can get it all in our book. Brian Baumgartner and I wrote a book, which is a fantastic book. It was a New York Times bestseller for 4 weeks. And HarperCollins, like everybody involved in The Office, no one fully believes, ordered 80,000 books, which they thought was a huge printing. All 80,000 books sold out. And so they had no more books. So you can't stay on the bestseller list when you have no books to sell. But the books will be back out now. They're totally available and you can order anywhere from Amazon. And it's the oral history of The Office. Brian Baumgartner, who played Kevin, a fan favorite from both his Chili and the Scrantonicity, great drummer, great golfer.
Yeah.
Brian Baumgartner, great talent, great podcaster. We got to connect his podcast to your podcast. And we did the book, and the book really gives you so much detail and insight into the alchemy and luck that made that show.
And I can support that statement. I have the book, and then I also have Somehow I Manage that Brock got me, the Michael Scott one.
Yeah, it's a hilarious little gag gift kind of, but it was Scranton bestseller, so you got to get it.
Yeah.
I recently just worked on the show called Righteous Gemstones on HBO. Danny McBride, John
which
Goodman.
I know.
They're
so freaking good, brother.
Oh
it's
man,
so good. He makes me laugh. Like that, you guys, like, that's one other group of people that actually genuinely are funny.
Oh, they are hilarious, and that's what it is on set too. And it's even cool. The crew he built too over the past 20 years is all friends and people he's worked with, and so there's a real good community there. So it's just jokes all day, and I don't think anyone laughs more than Danny. But to that point too is there's so much improv going on all the time. How much was there, or even what percentage would you say was going on in the office? And did that change the way that you produce?
What we did is we wrote it all, but then we would give them multiple takes, and like we would be like, okay, talk to the camera and say Jan stole my sandwich, and then they do it once, twice, 3 times that way, and then they do 4, 5, or 6 their own way, and so it was really grounded in them knowing and nailing the line and then doing their version, because you never knew, as Brock, like what you needed to pick up for story later on that maybe an improv would have thrown off versus doing it in a funnier way or a more complete way or a better way. And so many of our team were writers, so they kind of lived it. BJ Novak, who played Ryan, Mindy Kaling, they were writers. Toby, Paul Lieberstein, like, so there was so much back and forth also that they were able to kind of bring a little extra around that.
That's great. Yeah. I think some of those best moments are improv. And my first introduction into the film industry, being in front of the camera, was Boo! A Medea Halloween with Tyler Perry.
Really?
And that was the nice thing about working with him, though, is my first time doing it. Yeah, it was awesome. Was he said, and I asked him too, and then and it was nice to know, he's just writing the intention on the paper. And as long as you can get the intention across, you can say whatever the heck you want, and it makes it so fun, because when you're around a bunch of comedians and people that are just having fun, it's the whole product is better.
Feel it.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that. And you can tell on The Office, it's like, it's never not good, man. It's never not good. It's so fun.
Yeah, I've never seen like so many people having so much fun in one place. It really looks like everyone is just having a blast on that set and just like really enjoying being at work.
Yeah, chemistry's great.
And you're in character the whole time, right? Like you're in the back of that office. You've got to be doing stuff. You're in shot. Like we have a lot of big shots with a lot of the talent performing it almost like an orchestra, right? Leslie, who plays Stanley's doing something on the computer. Paul Lieberstein's Toby's like looking at a piece of paper, kind of cockeyed, and Pam's drawing a picture. It's got so much layering, like a great painting.
That's interesting too. Just like a brief side note comment on what you said about like Scranton, like not being a big city, but being near several. And like, I feel like can sometimes be the feeling of what it's like to work in an office, right? Like I've never thought about this until you said it, but it's like you're at a big company, but do you matter as much? Like there's a bunch
it's like
of you.
Dead end, right? Like we're in a business that's dying. We're in a town that's dead. Scranton's all alive, but like relative in the consciousness, we're in a mind killing workplace. and how do we feel? What's our and then within it you realize, we're a family and we're together, and that's all we need, is finding that. And then you have so much pathos, and it's about love in the simple things, and love in the smallest things.
Along the lines of The Office again, Mindy Kaling has become so successful since that show as well. I mean, what signs did she show that, she would bloom into this incredible career also? I mean, it's pretty impressive what she's done.
Well, I mean, I think about all of them, right? I think of Krasinski's fucking Jack Ryan. I'm like, Jesus. It's like, awesome. I did not, I don't think you would have taken him into, that kind of, and let alone the movies he's making with his wife, Emily Blunt, which are just like, and he's directing them, and Mindy's creating sitcoms, and BJ Novak's writing children's books, and you just see so much, and Craig Robinson's everywhere, and you just see, let alone Carell, who has been nominated and won and at Oscars, and just makes some of the finest movies around, and clearly has such great taste. So I think it, as I said earlier, it's a murderer's row of talent, both in front of and behind the camera. Our line producer, Ken Zabornak, was brilliant. Like every part of that show, from editor to director to writer to actor to producer, was really built for each other.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're exactly right. And I actually love watching the audition process of all the different people that auditioned for those roles. And then you see who it got, and just the chemistry of, you speak of taste, obviously you and everyone involved has such great taste, because look at what you guys were able to do. And it works so seamlessly, and it's so fun to even be a viewer of. And so, yeah, I guess segueing now, and we can talk about The Office all day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But with Oscars around the corner, we were looking into the stats, and looking at from 2020 to 2021, the Oscars went from nearly 24 million down to 10.4 million, which was a 56% decrease in the ratings. And the Oscars are something that you've referred to as the Super Bowl of film. Do you think last year's drop-off is going to have lasting effects? And what do you maybe predict or foresee for Oscars to come,
Well, I love the idea of Amy Schumer hosting it. She's dangerous. She's fun. She's what live television should be. I found the Oscars last year to be so offensive in how much disregard they had for the audience, that it really was hurtful. And as a fan of cinema, there was no question that was a turkey of turkeys on every turkey level. But I give it an asterisk. It was a COVID year. It's like a ball player on steroids. You got to just put the asterisk next to it. And I think they didn't know how to handle it, and they weren't equipped for it. And they felt kind of under attack as an institution in so many places. They just caved to everybody and did nothing for anybody. And now I think they recognize that, and they're pulling up their bootstraps. They need to celebrate their art and treat the audience, who is the one that drives the entire business and is what the business is built for, to be able to enjoy it and celebrate it and feel like they're part of it, not being kind of talked at, but partnered with.
Yeah, it makes all the difference. And that's how we keep making great content that also serves the generations now and then to come.
And I feel like television, separate from its award shows, has always been so intimate and so connected to its viewer, because it's been in the living room, and it's been in the bedroom, and it's been in these places where you're kind of walking barefoot. And the movies had always been in these big auditoriums where you were sometimes dressed up, sometimes on a date with your family, but around others and in this kind of communal kind of spectacle. And the Oscars had to remember that and celebrate that and connect to it to remain theatrical in how they're distributed. But also, even within the streaming universe, there's something special and digestible about a great big movie that excites you. And they just need to kind of help support their industry through the Oscars more so than some others, because it really has been such a big tentpole television experience.
And along those lines, your business partner on The Office, Ricky Gervais, he has kind of definitely publicly kind of come out and ahead of this with some of his speeches at award ceremonies. Do you think he was just having fun, or do you think he actually had some foresight into what was going to kind of happen?
No, I didn't see it, but I'd have to read it.
Oh, okay.
But I have no doubt he was doing it to be funny.
Right.
No, I'm sure he did not try and expose or read somebody's speech. I'm 100% positive he would be trying to be amusing, and just knows how self-indulgent the community will be and is with their platform. Obviously, movies and television are a platform, right? And there's a responsibility to tell the truth and assume every latchkey kid is watching and looking for the morality that came through MASH and comes through The Office and comes through great, poignant TV and movies. But you don't need to talk down to the people watching it. You need to allow it to be digested.
That makes sense. Yeah, on the surface, it just seems like he was being funny and, making jokes because that's what he was supposed to do. But
he's a comedic genius.
I got to read it.
Yeah.
Did it make you laugh?
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll read it.
When does he not? That's the more line.
It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Even the stuff with him and Steve Carell, their back and forth
Yeah,
is
battle,
great, dude. I love it. So you also produced The Biggest Loser, which actually ran longer than The Office. Do you think that the concept of people trying to make themselves better is what made it so successful, or what was like the core or key element in that, you think?
There's no question that was a show about heart. And you know, I can encounter fans of my shows and like know immediately which one they're relating to or connecting to. And that show was really about changing yourself and improving yourself and giving people tools, information, workout plans, you know, nutrition information, access to the best trainers in the world, access to the best equipment in the world, and seeing if they could pull themselves up to a place they wanted to be. And when you have a policeman who can no longer fit into his vest and has to go out on the streets and think about his family because he's overweight, and that's, you know, he's got a food addiction, or you think about a doctor whose patients can't take him seriously or follow his advice because of his obesity, and those kind of people were on that show, you know, and it was those kind of people who the nation got behind and fell in love with. And it was just such an emotional show. And we're an obese nation, and I wanted to set a light. And Michelle Obama partnered with us, and we did a £1 million weight loss challenge. We did challenges on Facebook. We did challenges with 24-hour fitness. We did challenges to help inspire people to build groups and do their own competitions, and also, you know, give a kind of menu of what you can do. Like, you know, you can eat more lean foods, you can eat more protein, you can exercise. These are the ways you can exercise. These are the kind of things to watch out for. So like all of that, I think, was an amazing part of what that show was. And my grandfather died of a heart attack due to obesity. And you know, I just really always felt like it was a subject that we needed to tackle in America. And I'm hopeful that show may have cured more hearts than Johns Hopkins. I mean, I feel like it really had power.
Yeah, I mean, that really leans back into what we're saying about the crabs in a bucket. You know, you did something to truly help people, and like you said, that is what our nation's made up of. You know, with a massive obesity, and people don't really know until you hear the statistics, and you're like, wow, there's a much larger problem than what meets the eye or what you originally think. So it's thank you, if anything, thank you, because that's what we need. The world needs more of that, laughter and health. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
And I mean, honestly, piggybacking on the idea of, you know, kind of making shows with powerful messaging, the Untold series is something I've been following very closely. And specifically the episode with Marty Fish, I ended up messaging him after I watched it, and we had an incredible conversation about mental health. So shout out to Marty on that one. But honestly, like, what drew you to making that show? And, you know, is it tough to produce basically feature-length documentaries for each episode? And then also just kind of what spiritually drew you to that project?
It is such a great series. Thanks for bringing it up, Will. I'm psyched you dig it. And I'm glad that we continue to remain relevant each successive, group of things. That's our current hit. And Untold is spectacular. You know, it's a franchise of amazing sports documentaries. It goes really deep and really specific, and it's no holds bar. And it tells stories that you may have some familiarity on the surface, but don't really know the whole story. And with Marty, I think, you know, seeing his relationship with Andy Roddick, seeing how he was brought up, and then realizing how talented he is, and then where he got to, only to kind of fall apart due to his own mental crisis, and then what he's done to rebuild himself, and how he approaches life and his family and his moves is super impressive, but also super emotional, and a journey that is powerful and important to tell, but also engaging, you know, and bringing the audience into a world and a tribe they've never been in. They've never watched two phenoms become number one players. You know, they've never seen the challenges of pressure on pressure on pressure. And I really am proud of it. And the Jimmy Galante, the Crimes and Penalties, about the mafia-owned hockey team is like extraordinary and one of the most entertaining documentaries I think ever produced. And so, like, how did you not know that story? And then you may have known that story, but you certainly didn't know the whole story. And I think that's what we did with Malice in the Palace. You know, I think there's just a lot of weight, and this next cycle of docs is phenomenal. So, you know, I can't wait for you guys to see them all. And we're also starting to develop them into motion pictures and really using them as drivers of intellectual property. I know you guys are both passionate about producing and, you know, media entrepreneurship, and, you know, documentaries are like the new books. Like, they can serve as IP as well. And the franchise is phenomenal, and it's fun to have something so important for Netflix, and I know they really love it too.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye out for all the new episodes coming up.
I'm sure they'll be served up to you because you watched the last ones.
Oh no, for sure. I'm very excited. It's an incredible series where people can watch on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of mental health too, I'm definitely someone who struggled with it, and I used health and all of that stuff in that space to really become the best version of myself. And I'm a firm believer, you know, that we're habitual creatures. And I believe you have to be extremely high functioning to do what you do and to be so successful at it as well. Are there any habits that you have or that you'd like to share, or you think might benefit, you know, anybody even listening?
I would say, you know, physical output is like essential for my well-being, and I've come to terms with that. And instead of just getting angry at myself for skipping a workout or not doing something physical in the course of the day, I've made sure to carve out time. And that's been something that's happened as I've matured, and it's incredibly important for me to express myself physically, either through 40 minutes of yoga or a long walk or playing some golf or going skiing or lifting weights. Whatever I can do to get some active output, like, really helps my brain and body function at a much higher level. And then, you know, I think it's just about how you manage time and like how you manage stress. And I'm still not very good at that. But those two things are like at high tax point for me. But I'm constantly in a high stress environment, and I'm constantly in high stress situation with a lot of big egos and a lot of big moving parts. And then, you know, the time management part of it. And I don't have it for the day for myself, one thing that I've done a lot is steam, like that steam or sauna thing too, is like, feels like another place to I've tried to meditate and I can't stick with it. My mantra somehow sounded like COVID to me. When I had learned my mantra, I felt like I was endlessly COVID. So I had to like quit. Yep. And I called the meditate, like, teach center to say like, hey, you guys gave me this bum mantra. I mean, this mantra he gave me COVID as the freaking mantra, and like, can I change it? And they're like, no, you can't change it. I'm like, what do you mean I can't change it? You're telling me you're trying to help me, and every time I close my eyes, all I'm hearing is COVID. I'm like, I need help.
Oh,
so, you know, it's never a straight line.
Yeah, I totally get that. But, you know, you keep pressing forward. You're involved in many philanthropic endeavors, including Seeds of Peace. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I mean, I think we've been given so much, and I've been blessed with so much opportunity. It's important to be engaged in part of the world wherever you can express your support, either financially or physically, or with you know, whatever action you can provide, not just thought. And we live in challenging moments, and it's easy to kind of bury your head in the sand because it seems overwhelming where to point your energy. I care, you know, deeply about a lot of things, but just finding how to kind of manifest it. I'm you know, and I try and work hard on those things. I believe there is a route for peace in the Middle East, and feel like anybody who's invested in that has been one small part of the Abraham Accords, which connected the Arab world with the Jewish world for the first time in a real meaningful peace output with the UAE and Dubai and Bahrain and the Gulf, and obviously Egypt, where peace had been signed by Begin and Sadat years before. And that's an area that I really care about and try and support charities that encourage it and philanthropy around it. And then I really believe in education and the environment as existential crises of our time that need, so much attention and energy. Our educational system is really in a transition. I think it's in dire needs of a new teaching core because so many teachers are burnt out and want to quit and need to be supported and loved and not just challenged in school board meetings about mass. I mean, they've been so misdirected from education in a harmful civic way. And then the environment is just so clearly where all of our attention needs to be focused. And when you think about the devastation in Ukraine and just like the multiplier effect that's had to accelerate our environmental decay, literally in the destruction of Ukraine and all of its, nuclear and horrific human carnage, but also how it's like now being like, we need our gas again, we need our oil again, we need our fossil fuels. It's like going to reverse, the 25 years of no progress we already had. So it's all scary, but we have to be involved. All of us have to be involved. We have to talk about Ukraine every day. We have to talk about the environment every day. We have to ensure that the conversation is on the table. Someone said to me, you got to put it on the table. Like there's so much you don't want to put on the table. You got to put it on the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
MacGruber is one of my favorite films of all time. And I really, really enjoyed the television series and wanted to ask, one, are we going to get more seasons of MacGruber? And then parlay that into what else, can fans look out for of work of yours to look forward to?
Sadly, I didn't get to do the MacGruber series. I just put together the MacGruber movie.
Oh, no, that's horrible. Okay.
I know, it's a bummer for me. But I think Lorne Michaels has demonstrated at Saturday Night Live is an engine of a million different kind of creative outputs. And I feel like The Office has that opportunity. I feel like there's a lot left within The Office and it's its own kind of Marvel universe of comedy. And so I've got to start working on that. And that's my focus now. And I really appreciate you boys.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Oh yeah, we're so grateful for having you on, and if Office fans can look forward to more stuff, I mean that's incredible right there. Thank you so much, Ben.
Have a good one, man. Thank you.
Okay, bye, boys.
Bye. Thank you for watching Studio 22.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe,
and follow our socials at Studio 22 Podcast.